Welcome back to the Injury Prone Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Edwin Porras, editor of Physical Therapy Medical and fantasypoints.com, coming at you this week with the walk-in clinic again. And man, do we have stuff to get to. Before we get there, just want to mention one more time the Patreon, where you can get transactions throughout the week, recommended transactions. You can get injury updates down to the minute. You can get injury implications. You can get projected returns for every guy that's injured. You get all of this throughout the week, all week. Start sit questions if you want to ask me start sit questions that are injury related. Any question you can imagine in that Patreon for just $9 a month. That is 2 Starbucks coffees per month. You have basically full unlimited access to me and all my content that you could possibly want. So make sure you go to the Patreon. It's patreon.com/injuryprone. Got that out of the way. Good. Let's talk about all the news that poured in this Sunday. We're going to talk a lot about Joe Burrow, but we don't really know a lot. Zach Taylor's came out and said that week 3 is in doubt for Joe Burrow, but we don't really know what that means with Zach Taylor. We, of course, know the classic Joe Mixon situation where he kept calling Joe Mixon week to week and day to day, and Joe Mixon ended up missing 10 weeks, I think it was, that year in 2020 and didn't return at all. We saw the AJ Green thing the year before in 2019 when he kept saying that AJ Green would be back. AJ Green never got back. Zach Taylor's just not a trustworthy source. And Joe Burrow did say that he tweaked his calf. Now, this was unexpected. This wasn't necessarily something that we thought was going to happen. There's an entire list of quarterbacks who have had a calf injury since 2018. The list is small. I tweeted it out. The list is like 6 guys, maybe 7 guys, and none of them had any issue returning. So this is a little surprising. So we're going to have to monitor this one. Jorge and I will talk about this a lot more on Friday when we have more updates and we know what his practice status is. But for now, you should plan to be without Joe Burrow just in case. Your recommended transaction is pick up somebody on the waiver wire that isn't Anthony Richardson because Anthony Richardson has a concussion himself. What you need to know about concussions is that since 2018, 50% of the time, quarterbacks who sustain a concussion come back, which of course means 50% of the time they miss at least 1 week. So this is really going to be a coin flip. Anthony Richardson does have a history of concussions. So this is really, really, truly a coin flip. Concussions are unpredictable. Every player progresses through the concussion protocol at a different pace. So you probably have another option if you drafted Anthony Richardson anyway. So I would definitely go out and get a quarterback, have them on your bench because there's a chance that you might be without him this week. Obviously, I buried the lead here, but I do want to talk about Nick Chubb. That injury was probably one of the worst that I've seen since I've started doing this. Initially, what happened, I tweeted it out, and it looked bad from the angle that I saw. And this is what happened with the Rodgers injury too. But the first angle that I saw, I was like, ooh, yeah, that looks bad. And I saw another angle, and it looked worse. So you're worried about, for Nick Chubb, last night the concern was arteries, nerves, the joint itself, the knee joint being dislocated. I mean, it was bad. So right now we have to worry about Nick Chubb's health. We haven't heard, at least I haven't seen this morning, that he had any type of emergency surgery, which is great to hear. But man, yeah, this is something that is significant to his health moving forward, not just his football health. Don't expect him back on the field this year. Send good vibes Nick Chubb's way because that injury was gruesome. It was nasty. It wasn't a pretty scene, and we'll just leave it at that. Oh, another weird situation with Saquon Barkley and Adam Schefter is adamant that this is an ordinary ankle sprain, according to his sources. Now, last time Saquon Barkley missed 3 weeks because of an ankle sprain, it was his right ankle again, and it was a high ankle sprain. It would not be shocking if Saquon Barkley has a high ankle sprain. But it's hard to operate under that assumption if Adam Schefter is telling us this is a low lateral ankle sprain. So what you need to know when it comes to the difference is, and this is why I'm skeptical, 7% of the time, when there is a low ankle sprain for running backs, and again, this is since 2018, 7% of the time, running backs miss 3+ weeks, 7% of the time, if it's a lateral ankle sprain. You look on the other side of that, juxtaposed to that, you have running backs with a high ankle sprain. They miss 3+ weeks, 52% of the time. You heard that right. So there's a 45% difference in how many games are missed when it's a low versus a high ankle sprain. So I don't know. This seems kind of fishy to me. I think that at this point, as long as we don't see Saquon Barkley go on the injured reserve, we can plan on potentially having him back for week I think for week 5 is in the cards. I don't want to say it's a slam dunk, but if he misses week 3, 4, I do think week 5 is within the cards, even if this is a high ankle sprain, just based on what we know. But again, this is a really interesting situation, tricky situation, because the last time Saquon Barkley in 2021 had a an ankle sprain, it kind of, the reporting was also kind of off. They said his x-rays were negative and then he missed 5 weeks. So just keep an eye on this one is all. Your recommended transaction is you got to go out and get somebody off the waiver wire that isn't Matt Breida. Don't fall for the trap of Matt Breida. There are probably going to be some leagues that you're in where your best option is going to be grab Kareem Hunt. That's your best option. Leonard Fournette, grab your best option. I understand that that is not ideal, but in some leagues that I'm in personally, I know that those guys, even those guys aren't on the wire. So those are some super deep options. And of course, Jerome Ford, those guys. Maybe Kyron Williams is still out there, probably not. But you're definitely going to want to pick up a running back for the next couple weeks at least. David Montgomery, laughably, went against what Dan Campbell said, saying that David Montgomery is day to day, and he said it's going to be a couple weeks. I think based on video, he did get sort of rammed into, a defender rammed into his leg. He probably has a pretty deep bruise, and those are not comfortable. I mean, that is less tolerable than the name sounds. So be prepared to be without Montgomery for at least a week. I do think that this shouldn't extend beyond a couple of weeks for Montgomery. I think it's not the same injury, but last year Leonard Fournette